Episode 222 of CppCast with guest Inbal Levi, recorded November 5th, 2019. Sponsor of this episode of CppCast is the PVS Studio team. The team promotes regular usage of static code analysis and the PVS Studio static analysis tool. And by JetBrains, makers of smart IDEs to simplify your challenging tasks and automate the routine ones. Exclusively for CppCast, JetBrains is offering a 25% discount for a yearly individual license, new or update, on the C++ tool of your choice, CLion, ReSharper C++, or AppCode. Use the coupon code JetBrains for CppCast during checkout at www.jetbrains.com. In this episode, we talk about a new unit testing framework. Then we talk to Inbal Levi. Inbal talks to us about CRTP and her efforts to get Israel involved at the C++ committee. Welcome to episode 222 of CppCast, the first podcast for C++ developers by C++ developers. I'm your host, Rob Irving, joined by my co-host, Jason Turner. Jason, how's it going today?
I'm okay, Rob. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. We didn't mention Halloween last week. Did you have a good Halloween over in Colorado?
Yeah, we had 3 days of snow before that, and the sidewalks and everything were clear by the time Halloween came around, but it was still... We probably only got on the order of like 100 kids instead of the normal like 300, but yeah, it was still pretty good.
Yeah, we had pretty warm weather here. I'd imagine it would be hard to go trick-or-treating in the snow.
Yeah, I mean, it was just cold enough, I guess, that all the kids were bundled up and whatever. It was below freezing.
Oh, man. Okay, well, at the top of the episode, I'd like to read a piece of feedback. This week we got a tweet from Paul Drake, saying suggestion for an interesting guest, Lemire, and he sent two of the links from this person's blog for high-speed JSON parsing and stuff like this. And this is Daniel Lemire's blog, and he's got a couple posts here. The two that they linked were doubling the speed of std uniform int distribution in the new C++ library, and benchmarking is hard. Processors learn to predict branches. So I haven't had a chance to look at these posts in any depth, but I'm sure he would be an interesting guest.
Sure, yeah.
It says he's the computer science professor at the University of Quebec in Montreal, focused on software performance and data engineering.
Cool.
Yeah, so maybe we can reach out to him. Well, we'd love to hear your thoughts about the show. You can always reach out to us on Facebook, Twitter, or email us at feedback@cppcast.com. And don't forget to leave us a review on iTunes or subscribe on YouTube. Joining us today is Inbal Levi. Inbal is a C++ enthusiast. She's an embedded software developer with a passion for high performance, working on real-time Linux-based systems. She also makes it a habit to dive into new OS projects whenever she can. Inbal lives in Tel Aviv and has recently traveled to Denver to give a talk at the Back to Basics track at CppCon, hoping to infect newcomers with her passion for C++. Inbal is part of the Israel C++ developers community, which makes its first steps in the international C++ world. In addition, she's also part of the organizing committee for the Core C++ 2020 conference and actively trying to bring new people into the C++ world. Inbal, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you. How are you?
Doing good.
There's a lot in that intro that we are going to definitely spend time unpacking once we get to the interview here. Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah, I see you have material, so to crucify, so.
No.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
How are you, Jason?
I'm doing all right. How are you doing?
Great. It's nice to be in Israel back after the conference. It was a long time away from home.
You're not a fan of Denver?
No, I actually really like Denver. I was also doing I traveled to the Rocky Mountains and so on.
Oh, nice.
It was really great. But I just sort of missed my bed and home and, apartment. And I'm sure you're relating, Jason.
Yes, I fully understand missing your own home and bed and everything. Yes.
Yeah, I've heard you said that you're going to stay for 1 month in Denver. Am I correct?
I think it was about 6 weeks total that I've been home, including the conference, before I then now, which we haven't really mentioned this. Well, we've mentioned it maybe once on the show, Rob. Next week, or in 2 weeks, week and a half, I don't even know anymore. I'm heading to Code Dive. I'm heading to Code Dive, and then and we'll also be speaking at the Avast Prague C++ meetup after that.
Right.
So doing a little bit of Eastern Europe tour at the coming up here shortly, which may affect our schedule a little bit for recording.
Yeah, hopefully we won't miss too many episodes, but we'll definitely do our best to work around your schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
There's a remote technology these days, though. You can do things from remotely.
Oh,
sure.
Yeah, assuming you have a stable internet connection.
Yeah.
Which is not always a safe assumption.
No, that's
on one of my recent trips, I actually had to pair my laptop to my cell phone and use international data to make an interview, a podcast episode, because there wasn't stable enough Wi-Fi in the place we were staying.
Well, you know what they say, home is where the Wi-Fi automatically connects. So
I've never heard that.
I've not heard that one.
Oh, really? Yeah. Not mine, though.
That's funny.
It's the internet.
Okay. Well, Inbal, we got a couple news articles to discuss. Feel free to comment on any of these, and then we'll start talking more about what you've been up to, okay?
Sure.
Okay. So this first one is a new Boost experimental library called UT, which is a C++20 micro unit testing framework. And this is another one from Chris Jusiak, who we had on the show, I think, earlier this year. This must be a new one, because I don't think we mentioned it all when we had him on.
Oh, no. He's been tweeting about
injection.
this over the last month or something. This is
brand new.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you take a look at it?
I looked at the way it's, I didn't look at the source code or anything, but I looked at how it's generally used. And I think it's worth pointing out that at least as far as I am aware, Boost Experimental is just Chris Jusiak.
Right. It's not actually.
This is another one of his libraries that he calls Boost because he feels like it.
Yeah, I think he has said he's going to make some effort to get them into Boost, but yeah.
Not necessarily a part of Boost, doesn't require Boost, I don't think, in any way, because it's a single header include.
Yeah, it's like Boost in quotation marks.
Right.
Yeah.
So just for clarity for the sake of our listeners. And yeah, it does not require Boost at all. It's all standalone header file.
But yeah, it's pretty cool to see a non-macro based unit testing framework.
Yeah, it definitely is.
You said you didn't look into exactly how he was achieving that, though? I didn't have a chance to.
Well, I just clicked on this main source file just to look at it, and I see lots of things that I would have expected. Mm-hmm. It's appears to be fully const expr enabled.
Right.
Because, of course. And pretty clean. Single file, 1,400 lines. That's it. Yeah.
Nice.
Bunch of lambdas.
They always make everything better.
Yes, they do. Lambdas make everything better.
Okay. Next thing we have is an article on Rainier Grimm's blog. And this is C++20, the Big Four. And I guess this is the first post in a planned series where he's going to go over all the new features that are coming in C++20. This first one obviously highlighting kind of the most significant features that are coming, concepts, ranges, coroutines, and modules. And he also goes over what type of compiler support you can already get for some of these features, whether you can test them in GCC, Clang, or MSVC.
Yeah. So I just want to say about concepts, I think this is like a really good example of a great feature being added, because as far as I see it, it's for the compiler and also for the developer. It's like a really good feature, to my opinion, and its ability to simplify abstract ideas and have additional ways of doing things. I think it's really great. And I'll just mention that the person that implemented it on Clang is actually Sar, and he's also from Israel. So he was also on CppCon. and it's great. Yeah,
And
I really think it's great.
He's given 2 talks on that, on his experience, I believe now, right?
Yeah, and they're also very good. He really inspired, I think, me as well as other people to start adding some code to compilers if they can. So it's really awesome.
So are you currently working on any patches to Clang yourself?
I tried. Okay, so I'll say that the talk that really excited me is the one of Herb Seller. He talked a lot about getting embedded developers features into the language. Mm-hmm. And one of them was downcast, and I just thought it was cool and started playing with, with different ways to have that with the minimal way, with the minimal overheads. So, just sort of different implementations or structures that hold the types and so on. So you just played with it, for a while.
A downcast is I'm trying to remember.
It's like a dynamic cast that can only go to the right way.
Okay, so it doesn't have RTTI overhead.
As far as I know, there's still no implementation, but I think it shouldn't have. Yeah, that's what I think, because
right.
So it's just an idea. So I'm just trying to play with it and maybe. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, very awesome.
And other things that Heb also mentioned, I think they're really great. He mentioned exceptions by type, which I also think will be great for embedded developers. And in general, I just think that it felt like, being thought of. It felt like, he really wants more developers to use C++. So I think it's great.
Okay. And then this last article we have, we mentioned this feature coming into Visual Studio a couple weeks ago when we had the Visual Studio team on while we were at CppCon. They now have an official post about it, address sanitizer for Windows with MSVC. And this is now available if you use the preview releases of Visual Studio, 2019 16.4, preview 2, I think. Yeah. But it's a big post that goes over exactly what you need to do to enable ASAN support in your Windows binaries. So it's definitely worth looking at if you want to try that out. Unfortunately, it is limited to x86 right now. They do say that they're...
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say this article needs an asterisk like the size of the page.
Yeah.
Because I don't know anyone who's making 32-bit builds anymore on Visual Studio.
I mean, I'm still working in 32-bit, but I'm actually actively working on adding 64-bit support. But, yeah. But yeah, although they do say they're going to add more platforms soon. So hopefully they'll get 64-bit and maybe even ARM soon.
Right. But I don't mean to undermine their, what they're aiming for here. Yeah, it's great. We want this. I just would also love to see the 64-bit support.
Yeah.
And for those of you who are curious, it's enabled exactly the same way that it is on Clang at /f sanitize equals address. So it works the same way as Clang and GCC's. And I think it's probably still the same actual implementation, because as far as I know, Clang and GCC share the same implementation. I think we asked them about this in the interview, that they share the same implementation also.
Yeah, I believe it is definitely the same implementation. I think they actually mentioned that they actually fixed a couple bugs in ASAN while they were working to add this to Visual Studio, which is pretty cool.
It's the advantage to having cross-platform software.
Yeah.
Find more bugs.
Okay. Well, Inbal, you already kind of mentioned that you work in the embedded space. Could you maybe tell us a little bit more about the embedded work that you do?
Sure. So I work at SolarEdge, and this is a really great place. They're doing inventors, which are actually it's in the solar energy field, and they're trying to have smarter ways to convert your solar energy to electricity. And this is like the main topic. So I'm working on a Linux card, of course. And, yeah, and it's great. We have like very broad. We really support a lot of features for the users, so this is really awesome. There's a lot of end user thinking in our design, and we keep developing, and there's really a lot in this field. So yeah.
So you're actually working on the software that does the power conversion? Is that what you were saying?
Not exactly, because that runs on DSP, but I'm doing more of the management part, like everything above that. Everything relates to talking with the server, giving the information to other processes. In general, we can have a few of those inverters connected together, so they have to exchange information and so on. So all of this is in the card that I work at.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You said you work on a Linux card. I mean, how limited is the system you're working on? Is it constrained resources? Do you use exceptions, RTTI?
Okay, so as I mentioned in my talk on CppCon, we're really very limited in a manner that we really try to avoid. For example, of course, we have no exception, and we really don't have a lot of dynamic allocations. We do them if we must, but we really try to avoid that in order to avoid, of course, segmentation faults and so on. And this is challenging. I mean, you have to think differently when you design your program. You have to make sure that you only do what you must. You really try to avoid any kind of overhead relates to big structures and so on. So so it's challenging.
So you mentioned that you were at CppCon 2019. Can you tell us a little bit about what your talk was about there?
Yeah, sure. So I was in the Back to Basics track, and I talked about a very old technique that is actually CRTP. But to my opinion, I mean, the talk was also, of course, about virtual table and overheads and so on. But to my opinion, a lot of newcomers to C++ language, they don't know many of the techniques that isn't exactly on the spotlight right now. So I think it's also important to have something that is considered, maybe older or less in the spotlight right now, but I think it's also cool to introduce that. So I've just, showed more simpler examples and so on, but I actually was surprised there were a lot of questions, and also questions afterwards, and even from people that are considered more experienced. So CRTP is not trivial, and also appears in a lot of other places. So it's cool to see, using things not trivially is awesome. Of course, ConsexPair might, take this whole thing less, to be less relevant, but still.
There'll probably always be a place for CRTP. Can you describe for our listeners what that is, what it stands for?
Yeah, of course. So this is a courteously recurring template pattern. I'm not sure if I even mentioned that in my talk. I think it's a really cool name to start with. So this is actually using template metaprogramming in order to create inheritance on compile time. So basically, you create a base template, and then you inherit it, and by doing so, you're sort of creating the structure of inheritance, but on compile time. So this is really awesome. It gives really good performance, and when you care about milliseconds and so on, it turns out to be really relevant. So this is cool. And in general, I think it's interesting to When I was working on this lecture, I wasn't aware of how runtime and compile time are really a big deal in the world, nowadays. So I really wasn't aware of that. And then I found out that this is really a hot topic. I even had like an intro. John mentioned my talk in his back to basic track talk. Mm-hmm. He talked about dynamic inheritance or the normal inheritance, and he was really passionate about the fact that people are moving everything to compile time and not willing to do anything on runtime anymore, and maybe it's also a bit of exaggeration. So it's interesting. People are very passionate about this topic. And of course, with ConsXpert and so on. So
you said you had a lot of people asking questions. What I'm curious if you recall, like what kinds of things did people get hung up on, or what were they like really interested in digging into?
Yeah, so I had questions from. It was actually quite surprising the amount of interest. I had someone that said that he's going to show this lecture to his students. And this is awesome, and especially for someone like me that had her first talk in a big conference, and actually in an international conference. I wanna say that Core CPP is also big, and you should all come to visit in Israel. No, but it was really awesome, and other people were just curious about the application, and there was really various reactions to that. So it's interesting.
So this was the same talk you gave at Core C++?
It was a very similar one. It was a bit different because I focused on different things. I had a request from John to go more over virtual tables and so on. So I emphasized that subject a bit more, but it was a very similar one.
We mentioned that this talk was part of the Back to Basics track, which was new to CppCon this year. I think maybe they did that in the first year. Jason, is that right?
I don't know if they did it in the first year. I know it was something they hadn't done in several years.
Yeah.
You can't say anything about the history of.
I wasn't there the first year. I don't have anything to say about it.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. But did you go to any of the other Back to Basics talks? Inbal, I think Jason, one of yours was also in the Back to Basics track, wasn't it?
Yeah, although I keep getting overlooked because I was the intro keynote and I didn't actually have Back to Basics in my title.
Oh,
so
that's misleading.
Yeah, but I mean, I did. I put it in the title because they told me to, but then in the actual published schedule, it wasn't in the title. So I don't know what happened there. But yes, I was the first talk of the sequence. And then because of other obligations and reasons, I didn't end up going to any of the other talks in the Back to Basics track personally. But yeah, I think we're both curious what you thought of the rest of the track, if you went to any other parts of it, Inbal.
So really, I didn't have a chance also to go to many of them. I went to John's, as I said, and but I can say in general that, and I also were in, I think I were in one when they, I forgot his name, but he came to CPP, in Israel. Anyway, I think it was really a great track. I think that's maybe, a big conference as CppCon might be a bit intimidating for newcomers. Mm-hmm. So I think just the fact that you have a Back to Basics track is already very inviting to people to join. And also, if you wanna, emphasize some kind of some subject that you're not sure about, it's of course it's great. But also, I just think that the fact that you have one of those is really inviting. And maybe we should have one in our conference as well. I'll consider that. Yeah.
It sounds like there was discussion about having it again at CppCon, but since you keep mentioning Core C++, let's go ahead and ask you about your involvement
sure.
in it.
Yeah, if you're mentioning it, of course, I'll be happy to talk about it. So, I just want to say that I joined very recently. Of course, Adi and Michael was the ones that started it, and I think it's a great conference, especially in a matter of a country like Israel. We do have a lot of good developers here, and a big conference that would focus everyone together, like have come some kind of agenda and put them all together in one place. It's really great. So first of all, I just want to say we still don't have dates for CP 2020. Okay. But we have a community sponsorship tickets, and we really invite students and all kind of people that are interested to ask for our support. We can do that, and we're probably gonna do it in half a year, but I can't tell you dates for now. So. But I'll keep you updated, of course.
May, June time frame again, something like that.
Yeah. We have a time frame of it probably gonna be around May. We're trying to aim it to be around May and June and July at worst, but it might change. We can't say that for sure yet.
Trying to avoid the hottest time of year, probably.
Yeah. Exactly.
Makes sense.
But of course, you'll be the first to know.
I officially have not made any plans at all for 2020 yet. I have no idea what conferences I'm going to submit to.
Well, now you have one.
Okay, so
it have to be on 2020 because it have it on the name. So.
Oh, right. Keeping along that same line, so you gave your first talk ever at Core C++ 2019?
You'd say the first big one, yeah.
First big one, okay.
The first one that isn't like, class in university thingy or seminars, things like that.
Oh, okay. So,
and it was really awesome. I have to say, I have some passion for teaching. I used to do that during my degree as well. Okay. And I think it's really awesome. Showing people your perspective on subjects is cool. I think that C++ is a really interesting language because it really connects abstract ideas to the low level. So I think it's awesome. So I hope I was, able to pass that on, hopefully.
And then you already said you gave a modified version of that talk at CppCon. How was that experience going to? I don't actually. CppCon's not the largest C++ conference, is it? The largest one, I think, is C++ Russia.
Oh, is that true?
Oh. I think that's right. I don't know, but anyhow.
Yeah, it's all a matter of scale. So, in country like Israel, it does look like a huge one. But yeah, it's definitely a bigger one than what I've what I've experienced before. But I have to say that first of all, I was very happy that I was be able to talk. It was really, I wasn't sure that I'll be able to pronounce words at first. So that was great. That started really, really awesome. And so, I probably wasn't like the best presenter ever, but I think I was able to focus on the main subjects that I set to myself and I think be reasonably clear. So I had some values like some color key map sort of thing, and people said it wasn't very clear afterwards. But other than that, I think it was okay.
So do you have any general advice for anyone who's hoping to start getting involved in speaking at conferences and doing that kind of thing, since you're fresh out of this experience?
Oh, wow. Yeah, sure. So first of all, I want to tell you how this went. So to be honest, I just saw a call for talks for course CPP 19 in a Facebook group that I'm part of. It's a developers Facebook group. And I thought that I'm probably not going to be accepted, but I should definitely practice on writing abstracts. So I wrote an abstract of a subject that I was very interested at that time. And then apparently I was accepted. So I went and talked there. And then some people from CppCon came and said, like, especially Bryce, and said that talks are interesting and we should go and do them on CppCon. And then I would probably not going to say no to that because this is an awesome conference. So I said, okay, sure, let's do that. And then I end up on this stage. So what I want to say to newcomers is actually just do it, because really, I think it's awesome. And sometimes you don't think that you have much to say, but you do. And sometimes just your fresh perspective is something very valuable. So really, just as I rolled up like this, you should also try.
Did you have anyone review your submission before you put it in?
The abstract?
Yeah, the abstract.
No,
sorry.
not really. It was like maybe just an English-speaking friend that went over this, language stuff, but nothing really. It was very spontaneous because I didn't thought it would actually be accepted. But I think it's a very interesting topic. And I thought that there, and I also think it now. So.
Yeah, and you ended up, there was a surprisingly large contingent of Israelis who came to CppCon. You already mentioned SAR and yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And,
we've had Galzaban.
I had Dvir also, Dvir Itzhaki.
Yeah.
I thought you wouldn't be able to pronounce it, so I saved you the trouble.
That's fine.
And there were probably, of course, Adi Shavit, and probably other people that of course, Michael. I probably forget someone.
Right.
But a lot of them. We have a picture with Biana and
the entire Israeli
achievement
contingent.
Unlocked. Yeah. So, yep. And I also got the signature, so,
Nice. I wanted to interrupt the discussion for just a moment to talk about the sponsor of this episode of CppCast, the PVS Studio team. The team promotes the practice of writing high-quality code, as well as the methodology of static code analysis. In their blog, you'll find many articles on programming, code security, checks of open-source projects, and much more. For example, they've recently posted an article which demonstrates not in theory, but in practice, that many pull requests on GitHub related to bug fixing could have been avoided if code authors regularly use static code analysis. Speaking of which, another recent article shows how to set up regular runs of the PVS Studio Static Code Analyzer on Travis CI. Links to these publications are in the show notes for this episode. Try PVS Studio. The tool will help you find bugs and potential vulnerabilities in the code of programs written in C, C++, C#, and Java. So one thing I wanted to ask about is right now it's a ISO C++ meeting in Belfast this week. Obviously you're not there, but I understand that you are working on or part of the group making an effort to get an Israel national body to go to ISO meetings. Is that right?
Yeah, that's true. So the continue of my story of rolling up to ending up on talking on CppCon would be that someone suggested. Actually, I found out that Michael Wong suggested that a while ago, but I wasn't there to know. But actually, also Bryce and other people, John, have said that we should consider getting an ISO mirror committee in Israel. And I thought it would be awesome. But I also thought that that might take a while. People, we're not involved in the standard yet as someone that's already in the committee, at least most of us, generally speaking. But it turned out that maybe to do the first step is really the right thing to do. So we are now, we had a few meetings, monthly meetings, and we're going over the proposals for example, we went over the proposals on Belfast. I have to say that there are two very, very interesting proposals. I think the linear algebra proposals are exciting. I think it's really a very good case study of how to insert new features to the language. There's a lot of things that it's trying to think of it from the committee point of view. I think there's a lot of things you need to consider, like what's the scale of the code that you want to insert to the standard, and how would you make it more valuable for all developers, in different fields that need to use it, special assembly implementations on different fields like, GPU and so on. So I think it's a really interesting case study. And also, of course, there's this two papers. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but there's two papers. One of Blast that actually implements implements Blast, and another one that's trying to show. I think you had an interview with Guy, so I'm sure you're familiar with it. So another one that's, as far as I see, is trying to show something a bit new, maybe. I think it's really interesting to see what the committee is going to do about it eventually. I think it's a really good time to watch this in order to understand, the way of thinking, what you should consider when you put things in the standard. So I'm really following that, and this is just part of the things that we're doing now. I also talked with the Israeli institution for standards, and they're actually very, very approving and very pro. And I have to say that, again, just from my experience nowadays, I have to say that I also have someone from SolarEdge that is involved in a committee, an international standard committee, but in energy field. And I think it's a very interesting thing that the C++ standard I think it's very different from other standards. I think usually companies enter the standard committees in order to be able to push things to their direction, maybe business-wise. And in C++, it's really different, because I think a lot of the people are there out of passion. So it surprised the Israeli national. I think they're going to have to learn how to cope with that, because I think it's new for them. So I really came to them and I said that we want to start this, and they were automatically asking what's our business business aim in this, and what are we trying to achieve, financially, and so on. So it's a new. Of course, they are very supportive. I don't know if I mentioned it, but really, but it's interesting. I think it's getting into the standard out of passion and a caring for the language, and willing to make it the best is different than usual standardizing committees. So I'm really looking forward to it, and I hope that will even happen maybe before Prague. Hopefully.
Prague is only like
Prague?
November or February.
I think, February. But, maybe just signing the papers. Maybe I'm optimistic, but maybe a few of us will go, unofficially also. Sure. That's also a possibility. So.
Yeah, Prague is February 10 to 15, 2020.
And of course, Adi and Michael, that are also, as I said, they're part of they're really core part of our community, are also very supportive. So I guess that should work out.
Is there anyone from your group who's already going to some of the standards meetings?
So I've been to one.
Oh, okay.
I know some of us have have some proposals. Actually been Yecheskel, I think. He have a proposal in the Belfast. And, they're small proposals and just starting our way there, but I think it's a good start. And of course, we're trying to get some kind of protocol to have our meetings, have some concrete conclusions, and so on. So we're really building that. But some of us are involved, of course. more than me.
Okay. When did you go to a standards meeting, and did you present a paper or anything?
No. I just went there in CppCon. I just wanted to see how things are. Yeah, I went to SG14.
Right.
Really fast. Again, this is my passion. This is my interest. I'm really interested in high performance. I really care about getting things done quickly. So I wanted to see how this works and how it looks like and so on. So it was really very, very interesting.
And that's a full day of the con.
Yeah, I went to half a day. It wasn't. Okay. I had, but I have to say that really. I mean, I don't even consider myself as valuable as other people in Israel, that I think they should really put their, if they can have an opinion on the papers and comments, I think that should make everyone have a better result. So I'm really pro. And if that would work, I'll be very happy.
So what is the actual process like then at this point? You said you're hoping the paperwork will be signed, but I mean, is it like, who has to sign the paperwork, I guess is the question.
Yeah, yeah. So of course there's a standards institution in Israel, and they have to get all of our requests. Each person should put his request, and then they have a special person that comes and gives us like a guidance and starts, make sure that we're doing everything right and so on. And of course, we have to be in touch with the work group 21 and so on. And they're very welcoming. I have to say, I tried to get to more information on study group 14, and I sent an email and accidentally got to Micah Wong. And I wasn't aware that he was the one that's going to answer it, but also Herb Sutter forwarded the mail to him. So they were very supportive and very nice, and it wasn't really like I didn't send any official mail. It was really by accident. So I got all the suggestions on what to do and how to proceed, and they were very supportive. Again, this is something that I really think that you can see only on C++ world, at least that I saw. That they're very welcoming, for diversity and people that are from outside of the immediate environment, and I think it's great. It's also, as I said, I think it's great not just for the people from outside, but also for the process of thinking, because I think new ideas can really refresh and give new perspectives, and it's very important, especially when you're dealing with standards.
Absolutely.
So we wouldn't have to cancel what you did, and like sometimes might happen. Yeah.
Kind of sounds like your secret to success at the moment is to submit a paper that you don't expect to get accepted and to send emails that you don't expect anyone to respond to.
You think you got onto something here? I think I should definitely continue this path. Yeah,
sounds like really... it's working out so far.
Yeah.
I know it's a really it's a really good way of doing things. You should definitely do the same. No, really, but if we're serious for 1 second, if we'll be serious for 1 second, I just want to say that people should really go with their passion. Really suggest lectures for conferences, and you'd be surprised of how many of how much this community is willing to get new things, and it's really great. You really should do it. Go ahead and do it.
Okay.
I mean, not you, because I'm sure you're doing that. But
you're right, though. I mean, my path to ending up on all this was simply because I didn't have enough contract work one year. So I said, well, I guess I'll submit some talks to conferences and see what happens. And next thing I know, I'm co-host of Rob's podcast. I have a YouTube channel. And I'm speaking at conferences.
And giving up your personal life.
These things just seem to happen accidentally many times.
Yeah. It's really, I can really relate. The way I talk, when I talk with people, I just say that I got like a series of offers that I just couldn't say no to. So this is how it went,
So what's next then for you? Which conference are you going to next?
So I'm considering whether to offer a talk for CPP on the sea, right?
You may as well. Yeah. What's the worst that could happen? You have to go to England.
It's terrible. No, I'm kidding. I really like rain, so... No, but I'm not sure that I actually have the time to deal with that now because of all the ISO things
right.
But I actually aimed for of course for Core CPP 2020 and maybe CppCon. So, but things might change. So I still have a month to consider, or maybe a bit less.
Do you have any thoughts on what talks you might propose for next year for like Core CPP?
Yeah, so I haven't I think that I want to do something that is maybe completely new, but I'm not sure yet. I find the linear algebra proposals very interesting, so I might dig in more to that. I'd say that I have a hobby of math. I really love math. I loved it doing my degree, and I love it now, and I'm taking some classes and so on. So I find it very interesting, and even the part of doing like mathematical optimizations that you can, because if you have information on the objects, additional information, that you can do some of the operations differently. So it's very interesting, I think. Yeah, it's actually like on top of, I talked with people again regarding the proposal of linear algebra, and it's not really related to the library, because it's a higher level. As far as I understand, they're not planning to get like things like, you can have diagonal metrics, for example, and doing the power of that is easier and faster and things like that. So I don't think they're thinking of in this direction. But I think that if, for example, a library will take their implementation and add some mathematical optimizations on top of it, that could be really cool. So maybe that's something I'll think about, checking or researching.
Sure.
So that's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Could definitely be fun.
Yeah. Well, it's been great having you on the show today, Inbal. Look forward to hearing how the progress goes with the Israel National Body and see what talks you do next year.
Yeah, me too. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming on.
It's been great. It's been great. It was really fun. And come to our conference in Israel. Of course, we'll publish whenever it's gonna take place and time. But really, come to Israel. This is a really great place to travel to, and we have our community being really active, and it's fun. Come visit us.
I should go ahead and take the moment to say here that yes, it was a great experience as a speaker. That the conference took care of us, made sure that everything was lined up.
As a keynote speaker, not just a speaker. We really, gave you the proper,
Yeah, it was a good experience.
Great, thank you. I really hope that next year it will be just as good, if not better. So I just want to do a really quick round of thanks. I know I said I got two things accidentally, but it wasn't. It was thanks to really great people. So thank you, Adi and Michael, for starting the Notion in Israel with the conference. And of course, thanks for Bryce and John for having a great conference. and for Michael Wang and Herb Sutter and others in the committee that are willing to get new people and really willing to help them. So thank you very much. I really hope that this community will continue this way.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Inbal.
Thanks.
Sure. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening in as we chat about C++. We'd love to hear what you think of the podcast. Please let us know if we're discussing the stuff you're interested in, or if you have a suggestion for a topic, we'd love to hear about that too. You can email all your thoughts to feedback@cppcast.com. We'd also appreciate if you can like CppCast on Facebook and follow CppCast on Twitter. You can also follow me at Rob W. Irving and Jason at Lefticus on Twitter. We'd also like to thank all our patrons who help support the show through Patreon. If you'd like to support us on Patreon, you can do so at patreon.com/cppcast. And of course, you can find all that info and the show notes on the podcast website at cppcast.com. Theme music for this episode was provided by podcastthemes.com. Site at cppcast.com. Theme music for this episode was provided by podcastthemes.com.